Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via Livestream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Good evening and welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier. Excited to have you back with us this evening. Thanks for joining in. Always enjoy having a chance to talk to really sharp business leaders and really learn from them. Share their expertise. Appreciate them taking time out of their busy schedule to do that. And as mentioned, as a business owner, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. So it's important to continually learn and continually develop so that you can keep your business moving forward and not get stuck. And a big piece of it is your leadership. That's why we do this show for you. So definitely, as we go through, feel free to ask questions, post comments. We've got a great guest this evening. We're going to be talking about leadership and really how you can become a better leader. So this evening, our guest is Robert Jordan. He is an author. He works to develop leaders, and he's done some great things for a lot of different companies. So I'm excited to have him be here this evening with us and talk about leadership. So the topic is the right leader, the right time. Bob Jordan at Interim Executives. And let's bring him on and get started. Hey, Robert, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Andrew. I'm honored to be on with you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us this evening. Definitely want to have a lively conversation, and you've really done a lot of work in the leadership area. You've written a book on leadership. You've developed your own methodology. So, we're going to have a lot to cover. But before we do that, it's always good to hear a little bit about your journey. Where did you start out? What are some of the steps that brought you to where you are? And what are some of the key learnings that you had throughout the process? So.
Thank you. So, I'm your classic entrepreneur, which is to say I've been involved in a number of business launches, both my own and also helping out a bunch of other entrepreneurs over the years. The noteworthy one, the first company I launched was a magazine called Online Access. It was the first magazine in the world that covered online services and eventually the internet. I ended up doing that for about 10 years and selling it to a big publishing company. Although the more involved story is I started at age 26, made about every mistake you can make in the book. By 28, the company had gone bust. Nothing like walking into federal bankruptcy court. Having to go file was not a great day. I ended up buying the rights back out of bankruptcy court, starting all over again. And, eventually the internet caught up. And so then I could do no wrong. And it the business put me on the Inc. 500 list for fastest growing businesses. So those were my formative years. Then I took on this weird job title of interim CEO. It was pretty much unknown in the US at the time, and did projects mostly with early stage companies. When social networks came around, MySpace, Facebook, LinkedIn, I kind of wondered how many people in the world were like me doing these interim or project or fractional roles. And so we set up a network, a worldwide network, and that turned into a company called Interim Execs, as you said, which were like a global matchmaker. I don't take on projects anymore myself. There's this collective called the Red Team, and those folks go around the world and take on projects. So that's what I do, and that led to publishing the book I know we're going to be talking about tonight, Right Leader, Right Time.
Excellent, excellent. So it's interesting how your first business wasn't as successful as you had wanted it to be. But I'm sure you learned a tremendous amount from that and really developed your leadership skills as a result.
Painful school.
Yeah.
It's the Ben Franklin line. Ben Franklin, he has this line, experience keeps a dear school, but a fool will learn and no other.
So
right here,
yeah,
right
yeah.
here.
Well, definitely, one of my friends shared like something he always says that there's two ways to learn in business: by going the regular route and learning, or by losing money, because you tend to learn a lot of stuff by losing money, and hopefully learn that that's not the best way to learn.
Yeah, I was a slow study, very slow study at that.
Okay.
But yeah, eventually, I mean, it's just embarrassing. When you're 26, the kind of mistakes I made, like I bought nice brand new furniture when we had no revenues. And years later, I read about how Jeff Bezos started Amazon. And they would, every time they took on a new employee, they would buy a piece of plywood, a plywood sheet 4x8, and they'd take two cheap metal filing cabinets, and that became a desk. And I thought, why did I buy expensive? You got it right. I got it wrong.
Yeah, but you eventually got it right. So
I did. It was when I restarted. I'll tell you what really happened was that I had all these assumptions. I made all these assumptions that just there was no proof for them. So, for example, I thought, well, if you're a national magazine, you have to maintain 100,000 rate base circulation. And we were going to big national advertisers. And so they need to see that. Well, the reality was they didn't, because I was doing something different from any other magazine. And so when I bought the rights back out of bankruptcy court and started again, I couldn't afford what had come before when I had investor money. I had no more investor money. And so I essentially raised the prices 400%. I cut the circulation 1/4 and kept the advertising prices the same. And no one said anything. They were just like, okay. And I was like, oh my God, I got that so wrong. That I had to be that expensive and that I couldn't charge more.
And actually that's a great point, because most small business owners undercharge. That's
they do.
a very common thing to run into, and especially in this environment, with prices rising, that isn't really a good strategy. So, but before we get into it, let's just take a second. We do this through the Small Business Pro University, and it's one of our key initiatives, because we focus on developing entrepreneurs and business owners and help them to grow their revenues, increase profitability, and obtain financing. So just going to show a quick video to a little bit more about what the university does. Do you own your business or does it own you? Is your business growing and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to working on your business. Take advantage of our strategic coaching program or just simply choose the courses that you need. Okay. Not sure what's going on with our videos tonight, but hopefully we'll be able to rectify that. But hopefully you've got a little bit of a feel for the university, and we'll be talking a little bit more about some of the things we're doing. But Robert, you wrote the book. You thought about leadership a lot. And, one of the things that there's different leadership styles. And, so what are some of the key leadership styles that you've seen out there?
We identified 4 leadership styles that we saw among exceptional leaders. We call them fixer, artist, builder, and strategist. And in the book, it's often referred to as FABS, F-A-B-S. What sparked this, in part, Andrew, was that in the process of doing our company Interim Execs, we were approached by so many thousands of executives, and the vast majority were experiencing careers and leadership journeys that they were okay, but they weren't great. And then the flip side was looking at the top 3, 4, 5% of leaders who were exceptional, and that they tended to have a dominant leadership style, which was either fixer, artist, builder, or strategist. If that makes sense.
Okay. So those are the key areas. So talk to me, what is a fixer? What does that mean? And how does it work?
Fixer, as the name implies, this is the kind of leader that loves running into the burning building. Now, I know you are expert small business. We have a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners listening. And so everyone's thinking, well, duh, there's a dozen fires I put out every day. I get that. The difference here is that for leaders, as they become more and more successful, that the fixer is the person who has to keep running into the burning building. That is the way they express their leadership. So to give you an opposite example, I've been in business a lot of years with a lot of companies. I have to solve crises, but it's not how I get my energy. It's not the thing that I go seek out. What sparked this title for us was one of the interviews we did with a veteran public company CEO. And he said, if I put a fixer into one of my companies and it's not broken, he'll break it just so he can fix it. I thought that was telling.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. Everybody has preferences and tendencies. I'm sure you're familiar with the different personality assessments like Myers-Briggs. And, it's not necessarily you're good or bad. It's just what gives you energy, what's, you prefer. And, it's important to know that, knowing yourself. And, that's good. So what would you say the pluses and minuses of being a fixer? And how do you figure out if you're a fixer? Because sometimes everybody else knows except for you.
Each one of these 4 styles comes into being in a different way. Fixer is interesting because for most veteran leaders where that's their dominant wiring, the experience tends to be that early in their career, they're smart, they're hard charging, and someone on the team says, we've got a problem, not in that location. Maybe it's off in another country, Maybe it's another division. Maybe it's a client. And this is a really sharp young person. And they say, let's throw this person into that and see what happens. And it's a problem that probably a lot of the people around that problem thought was impossible. So it's kind of like good luck. And what happens to that individual is they crush it. They solve the problem. Maybe it takes a year, 2 years, 3 months, whatever it is, but they're hooked. And when they realize they could do something that very few people around them could do, they want and need to do that again, over and over. It kind of becomes an adrenaline fix. So, for example, we've seen executives like at major global ad agencies where they will send a troubleshooter in every time there's a problem client relationship. And that's a good use for fixer energy. Fixer energy is great for people where you can get this immediate gratification, because if everything's gone wrong, they're running out of cash, customers are fleeing, whatever it is that's gone wrong, that tends to focus a board of directors and owners and investors who are going to act much more quickly to follow that leader than they otherwise would in good times. And that plays to a fixer to their strengths. The downside of fixer, when the problem is solved, God help you if you keep them in that role, because there is a likelihood they're going to just keep on breaking it. They need to move on from maximum challenge to something else.
Okay. Interesting. I actually, it's a little scary because that's probably my space. In that, my first role out of college, I was a naval officer. And I was a supply corps officer on a ship. And when I got there, the ship was like, the supply department was probably one of the worst in the department, or in a squadron of 17 ships. And over a couple of years, we actually moved all the way up to number one, which was pretty exciting. And I've had roles where I'm fixing, and definitely in other roles I've just gotten super bored because there's nothing to do. It's everything's so I like to do stuff, and that's probably why I'm an entrepreneur, because it allows you to be creative and do solutions. So very interesting. So now, how about an artist? What do you mean by that, and how does that work?
The artist leader views the world as a blank canvas or a piece of clay. So the standout example in the world today is Elon Musk. And everyone's heard of Elon and the space company and Tesla and the Boring Company. And is he going to buy Twitter or not? And this is the energy that cannot help but create and innovate. And for the artist, it is sometimes at risk or danger, the peril to their own career and their money. Now, I can relate to this one because I'm wired as an artist leader. I tend to be very creative, coming up with new products, services, companies, but it doesn't mean I'm the greatest guy to then go execute on all of those projects. And so I need to surround myself with my teams, with people who are far better than I in terms of operational aspects. But the artist leader, you need that energy to make sure companies do not stagnate. One of the leaders we interviewed for the book, he was on Andy Grove's team at Intel. Andy Grove was kind of the most amazing CEO that Intel ever had. And Andy called this leader his wild duck. And in some ways, he didn't mean it quite as a compliment, but he said of this leader, you have to have a wild duck on the team. He meant you need the renegade, you need the outsider, you need the uncomfortable, disagreeable person. He's not playing like the rest of the team, and he doesn't just say yes to everything. And Andy recognized you have to have that. And his name's Avram. And so Avram was the founder of Intel Capital. This wildly creative ability to envision. And you think of all these engineers at Intel, and you needed people thinking outside the box, as opposed to just how do I cram more circuits into this area here?
And Andy Grove was an outstanding leader. I read a book by someone else who worked for him called Measure Everything. And it talked about his OKCs, which is really a way to, lead the organization and have everybody involved, everybody know their role and goals, and everybody know everybody else's role and goals. And was able to really get tremendous results as an organization. I think he's probably underappreciated in many spaces, how good he was. So, okay. Are you a fan of movies?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So, what you mentioned reminded me of World War Z. I'm not sure if you've seen that one. Brad Pitt. And when he went to Israel, and he was like, how did you prepare for this? And he was like, well, I'm the 13th man. And whenever everybody else agrees, I have to disagree and act on it. And, you need someone like that sometimes.
That's a great metaphor, Andrew. Thank you. I'm going to remember that.
Okay.
I have my own favorite movies that now, because I have leadership on the brain. So, for example, one of my favorite movies in terms of portraying artist leaders is the movie Where'd You Go, Bernadette?
Okay.
Starring Cate Blanchett.
Mm-hmm.
She's now in a new movie just came out. Have you seen Where'd You Go, Bernadette?
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it.
It's absolutely worth seeing. It's a good movie on its own, but she is so much of artist energy, and not to give it away, but you see that when she is not in her element, it's just crazy making. And when she is, oh my God, what a thing of beauty. And that in general, we have a phrase we used in the book, highest and best use.
Mm-hmm.
And what we noticed about exceptional leaders is they tend to reject more of what is not for their highest and best use. And so that movie is a beautiful example of what happens when someone strays from it.
Okay. Excellent. So I'll have to check that out. I've got that on my list now. So excellent. So you got the artist, and so that's FA, and then you got BS,
builder,
BS,
builder and strategist.
Right. Yeah, the builder and strategist. So, what is a builder, and how does that work?
So the label builder, listen, I know everyone in business is like, oh, I'm a builder. I get that. I really do. We're in business to build companies. Got it. We mean something specific here, which is builder is the energy that has market domination on the brain. Builders tend to be able to take small product, service, division, something nascent, and grow it to some point of scale or dominance. What you tend to see with builder energy is that when that product service has reached scale, they move on. They have to go and do it again if they truly have builder energy to them that's sustaining. So, for example, you'll see people where they grew something and they got an IPO, right? They have a huge event. A lot of cases, you will see builders move on after the IPO because it's like, what's left to do there? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I definitely, especially if you like the energy and you like building.
I can give you an example if you want.
Okay.
One of my favorite examples is Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, now Meta. Sheryl Sandberg, when she joined Facebook, the company was a couple hundred employees. It already had maybe 100 million of revenue, and it reached, I think, 100 million people. Okay, she number 2 role, COO, and she kind of announced in the beginning this was like a 5-year tour of duty for her. to do what needed to be done. Well, you fast forward 7 years, and where was Facebook? 70,000 employees, 3 or 4 billion human beings on the platform, revenue of, I don't know, 50, 60 billion dollars. So for my money, I would say Sheryl Sandberg, first 7 years, probably the greatest COO, the greatest builder example of the modern era. But then what happened? She stuck around another 6, 7 years. And what happened? Cambridge Analytica scandal. All kinds of other political problems that hit from elections. She wrote a great book called Lean In, but she was attacked from every side. She really didn't lean into Meta, this virtual world experience. And so you look at someone like that and say, classic example of a builder achieving domination of a market. But the flip side of that builder is you need to know when it is best to move on. And she didn't. And I'll bet she kind of regrets that she could have gone earlier and it would have been a better experience.
No, that's a great example. Great example. So, okay. All right. I didn't even realize that was her story. So definitely good to see that. So, and then we've got the final category of leadership, and tell us a little bit about that and, sort of how that differs from some of the other ones.
Strategist is the leader at scale. Strategist is the leader of complex or vast organizations. So one of the leaders we interviewed for the book, for example, Dr. Janine Davidson, she was the Undersecretary of the Navy, Department of the Navy in the Department of Defense, and just a radically different form of leadership when you have 1 million people in an organization. And, to hear her talk about systems of systems, how you're trying to have influence. The language that a strategist uses is very different from fixer, artist, or builder. And we're not using strategist in the sense of the word like strategy, which all leaders, of course, employ strategy in what they do. We could have used another word for strategist like pilot, conductor, quarterback, to indicate what the role is, because the language is starkly different. Most strategists tend to grow up and become cross-trained within one large organization. They tend to talk much more about mentoring and being mentored, about their loyalty to an organization. And you just don't hear that. Fixers, artists, and builders, they tend to be running teams. It's 10 persons, it's 20, it's 50, maybe it's 200. But there generally is a personal relationship that they have with those people. The strategist is it's Stephen Covey's phrase. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits, he talked about personal span of control. And the strategist is the leader comfortable way beyond personal span of control. Their leadership does not come from personal relationship where I know you and you know me. And because we trust each other, this is how we get things done.
All right. So totally different perspective on leadership. Great. I want to go back to the builder. We have a question from Will, and I'm put it on the screen. So really, he's asking about the building. Is it hypothetical as opposed to literal? How would you describe it, or is it both?
Builder, we're referring to being a business builder. And again, all different kinds of leaders do build businesses. We mean a specific use of the word, the person who is trying to take a small product or service and get to a point of market domination. Market is mantra for the builder. Market is not mantra for the artist. The artist, it's all about creation of the product, the service, the marketing message, the campaign. For the fixer, velocity is mantra. For the strategist, cadence is mantra. You just have this on your mind, which is, how do I move 10,000 people? So for the builder, I'll give you an example, because it's not always about Sheryl Sandberg type, Facebook. I spent a bunch of time in Boston. And in Boston, there is this incredible bakery. They're amazing. Lines out the door. I've never seen them in any other city. But when you're in Boston, good locations all over the city, Cambridge, Somerville, the surrounding suburbs, there's a builder at the heart of that who has market domination on the brain. Best quality product, dominate the market, but their market is Boston. It's not, I have to be all around the world to be the best baker. That's not the way they're thinking of it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so no, I think that explains it really well. Cool. So, we've been chatting a lot about different aspects of leadership and, really having that framework. We're going to dig into some examples, but before we do that, I just want to share a little bit about what we have coming up later this week. Those of you who have been to my Power Breakfast and Conference, it's a great opportunity to both learn and make connections. As you may know, this is our 10th year, so we've had a lot of progress and a lot of success. So here's a summary of, we've had, about 1,500 or more attendees, unique attendees over the 10 years, as well as, helped them get financing, helped them get new business. And that's really what we focus on. Our next one's coming up this Thursday and Friday in Newark, New Jersey. So, if you're in the area, you're welcome to come check us out. You can register at www.the-power-breakfast.com. And I'll put it in the chat as well. And, we've got some great guests. And let me show you a little bit about what the Power Breakfast is. And then a little bit later, I'm going to show you a quick video on our featured guest speaker at the Power Breakfast, Sean Rais, really sharp, powerful guy, actually a guest on the show about a month or two ago, and just brings a lot of energy and a lot of success, strategies around personal branding. So here's a little bit about what the Power Breakfast is. If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences.
My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm here hanging out with Robert Jordan, and we're talking small business with a focus on leadership. And really, one of the key things, he laid out the 4 key profiles of leaders, but not every leader may fall directly in one of them 100%. So, what do you see in terms of overlap? And, or is it that they just pivot from one style to another? And, what is your learnings around that?
It's a great point, Andrew. We would never try to pigeonhole any leader to say, you're just this one thing. It's not true. All leaders are a combination of style. What we are seeing is that we have noticed that exceptional leaders tend to have a dominant trait or style, or a dominant and a secondary. The other thing I would say is that as somebody goes through their career, it's a journey, and there's kind of a point of arriving, not arrived. You keep striving. But for example, Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, he just retired. He was 51 years as CEO and chairman of FedEx. And when you think about what he did at the beginning, he wrote a paper in class, right? It's famous lore that he wrote a paper, this crazy idea, take an airplane to deliver a letter or a package overnight. got a C, right, in the paper. And then he starts it, and everyone knows the story that, he didn't have enough for payroll. He went to Las Vegas and gambled to make payroll, right? I mean, this fixer energy of solving problems nonstop. Clearly, there was market domination. There's builder. But where he arrived at, and I'm not saying it applies to everybody, is this strategist role, to be the quarterback or the conductor in charge of an organization with hundreds of thousands of employees. And he's kind of a quintessential example in the world, but he's also an exception that proves the rule, which is most other leaders will not do that and do not have to do that. My discovery for myself is I'm so wired as artist leader, and that's just the way that it is. And it has its strong points for me, and it has its drawbacks, but I embrace it. I fully embrace it. And I'm going to, seek to go maximize that. One of the things we say about these 4 styles is it's a little similar to your DNA. DNA is made up of just 4 proteins. They're called nucleotides. But, the way that they cracked the code on DNA was figuring out these endless combinations of just those 4 nucleotides. So in varying degree, every form of flora and fauna, every form of biological life is made up of just those 4 nucleotides, but it's an endless variation. And that's the way we look at leadership, is the same way. Andrew, your particular mix of leadership style is different from mine, but it's to infinitely varying degrees.
Great point. Yeah, I mean, definitely all leaders, have their own style, and it's important that also everybody can be a leader, as long as you're authentic, and follow your style. One of the things that I share with a lot of business owners, and actually I laid out in my book, The Masterpreneur Playbook, is there's really 5 stages that you and your business have to go through to really grow from 0 to 20 million. And of course, the first stage is, you're an entrepreneur, working on the concept of your business. But then you have to work in your business. You have to figure out your business, and you're working more as an employee or a supervisor. And that's where most business owners get stuck, because they, are working in their business. They're busy all the time. They don't take the time to do the things that they need to do to be able to work on their business. They may not know how to do them. They may not know that they need to do them, whatever it is, but that keeps them from working on their business. And, one of the biggest things I found is, you can't improve anything if you don't measure it. And you can't really measure things if you're working in the business. So, you have to transition to being someone who's doing the work to someone who's managing it. It's a whole different level of skills, types of skills. But if you don't do that, your business is going to get stuck at a certain point. And, even beyond that, you become a good manager, but then to move to the next level, you got to be an executive. You can't micromanage managers, or they're not going to manage. And then your organization's going to suffer. So you got to learn how to be an executive and plan and really focus on the future, but also coach managers and sort of help them to be able to do what they need to do, which is a whole different, view. And then finally, you got to become the CEO. And that's more the strategic, I think, side where, your organization's grown, you've got employees, executives, managers, and then, to be able to run a much larger organization. And each of those, you got to evolve. So talk a little bit about how some leaders have evolved and what you've seen in certain cases, and how that's may look in terms of their leadership and what they needed to do.
It's a great point. That evolution can be painful, as you know. One of the examples I thought was so brave. We interviewed a web developer. He had been CEO. His name is Andy Crestodina. And Andy realized when he had about 15, 20 employees that there were so many things about management that he did not like. He had something he loved. He loved content marketing. So, Andrew, I know you know this. A lot of people that have their businesses online, you have to become knowledgeable, if not expert, in terms of how you're being found by Google, and in searches. Well, Andy loved that. He didn't like being the sales guy. He just didn't like a lot of aspects of running the business. And he got lucky. He had a customer, a client, who over time, getting to know him, he thought he would be a perfect CEO. So Andy didn't sell his company, but he kind of fired himself to get to we would say, his highest and best use. And so he hired his former customer, his former client, who became CEO. And Andy just put himself in charge of becoming a content marketing expert. And he is probably, arguably, one of the foremost experts in the world on content marketing. And he has exactly no one reporting to him at his company, at the company he owns. And the good news is that under the hired CEO, the business has doubled in size. It's far healthier. Everyone is far happier. But Andy had to go through that kind of evolution, and that takes guts.
Not only guts, that takes confidence to be willing to turn over the reins to someone else of your business. I think, the example of Steve Jobs, he didn't get to be CEO initially of his own company. But it actually turned out to be a good thing because he wasn't ready. And, he wasn't happy about it, though.
Well, Elon, back to talk about Elon Musk for a moment. He was deposed in court, I think it was about 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And in this trial, he said he didn't like the role of CEO. He would far rather spend all of his time on product design and engineering. It was kind of like he was just, if he was going to have the company he wanted, he had to go do that. And for him, that is the case, but it doesn't mean it's ideal. Andy, in a company of 20 employees, he got to call the shots. And again, he didn't have to give up his ownership of the company. He came to a much better solution. Mm-hmm. I tell you, we covered a very radical example in the book, which is the way Google is organized. We interviewed one of the senior managers who he had a large team by Google standards, a couple hundred employees and a couple hundred contractors. And you think about Google, they relentlessly automate things to make faster and faster searches. Mm-hmm. And so his team had this mission to put themselves out of a job every 18 months. Mm. They would give them something that needed to be automated, something that humans were doing in the background at Google, and Google wanted it automated. And what this manager said is, you had to be confident knowing you're not going to be out of a job when you successfully automate this and kind of self-obsolesce yourself from your current role. That's not what's going to happen. By doing something and being excellent at figuring out how to become more automated, more efficient, you're just proving you can move on to the next project at Google. That's a radically different kind of thinking from the way our parents and our grandparents thought of work.
Yes. And in this environment, that's they're getting the most out of their employees, because instead of just coming to work, you're actually living it. And, even when you're not there, you're thinking about it, getting ideas, and you're almost making them like the business owner. as a business owner, you're always on and thinking about your business, and it's never that far away from you. But that's the way that they push that throughout the organization, and it's a great strategy, great leadership system. So very, very nice. So one thing I always hate is these shows go really quick. So we're already at about what, quarter till. So so things are going good. This has been a great chat. So a couple other things that I find, one thing, when I'm working with business owners trying to make the transition from being a manager to being an executive, one of the most important things I focus on is, you shouldn't be telling your managers what to do. Like, as a manager, you're telling your supervisors what to do, but as an executive, you shouldn't be telling your managers what to do. It's really about coaching them. So one of the things I train them on is, you're not allowed to tell your manager what to do. All you can do is ask questions. And surprising how well it works, but it's really difficult at first. Actually, one of the clients I work with, he's like, I need to tattoo a question mark on my wrist so that I don't forget. Because once you get in a certain mode, you're just so used to telling people what to do. And what are some other key things that if you're leading an organization, how do you basically have to evolve and change yourself? And how do you help people do that? How do successful people who have done that, what are some things that they do to be able to do that?
It's a great question, Andrew. I'll share 3 hacks with you, kind of leadership hacks. We asked all the leaders we interviewed in the book, what habits, do you have any particular habits that you think help you be successful? One thing we heard a lot, a lot of people think that when a leader comes in, especially as a crisis, they're just so hard charging and, they're going to fire everybody, blah, 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 and all this. And what we tended to hear, even in those crisis situations, is that the first thing that the leader did coming in was to listen. And in particular, it's not listening to the senior managers who are supposedly the know-it-alls. We kept on hearing it's the people running the machines on the factory floor. And it's the administrative assistants that if you really wanted to know how that business ran or wasn't running and failing, boy, you better get on the floor. You better be talking to all the admins and listening, just being in listening mode. We heard some good kind of funny things. One of them, we asked one leader and said, well, do you have any success habits? And he said, well, I'll tell you one thing. I will not allow a team to make a decision on a Friday afternoon. I said, why not? He said, well, look, by Friday afternoon, everyone is thinking about the weekend. They're thinking about the soccer game, whatever. And he said, if you institute something major on a Friday afternoon, guaranteed something's going to blow up. And who's going to want to have to deal with it on Saturday or Sunday? He said, so no major decisions. One of the marvelous entrepreneurs we talked to, she has a company of hundreds of occupational therapists, physical therapists, OT, speech. And we said, any success habits? She said, well, I've got my angry swim. I was like, what do you mean an angry swim? And she said, well, I love to swim. And if I know like I have to have a tough conversation like with a lawyer coming up and I just don't want to do it, she said, I'm going to get my anger out in the pool. I'm first going to have my angry swim. And then I'm going to go into the office and have the conversation.
Okay. All right. No, excellent. I guess listening to the people.
Yeah. I'll tell you one more.
Okay.
One, Andrew. We interviewed, everyone's heard of Hugh Hefner, and his daughter, Christy, sharp as anything. Christy ran the public company Playboy for many years, did all the global licensing deals and all that. She originally trained as a journalist. And so she had this wiring that she said anytime she was in a meeting, she's a very charismatic, commanding presence. And that can be intimidating for people in the room. And she said she wasn't going to make any decision until every single person in that room had talked. That they all had to have a voice if they were there. Even if it was just questions, whatever, but that she just didn't want to be the person who was, pronouncing these commandments.
Okay. No, that's excellent. And also, good strategy, because in a lot of meetings, different people like to talk a lot more than others. And usually it's the people who sort of think while they talk. So, they're sort of thinking, and there's what they're saying isn't super well thought out. Whereas the people who think before they talk, a lot of times they're still thinking and don't get to share the result of their thinking. So, definitely that I like that a lot, because, I'm a little bit more introverted. My wife is super introverted, but super smart. And, a lot of times, she comes up with great stuff, but not in the meetings. So no, definitely. So, you sort of almost did what I was going to do next. But we'll still do it, because you'll probably come up with something different. Because usually, at the end of the show, since we cover so many topics about leadership, I ask the guests to really think about the top 3 things someone should take away from what we discussed tonight, and that they can start implementing tomorrow or tonight if they're night owls, and really use that to be more successful in their business. I'll let you take a minute or two to think about that, and we'll come back and chat about it. But while you're doing that, we're just going to take a quick look. So, as I talked about before, my power breakfast is this Thursday night reception networking from 5 to 8, Friday all day. And, definitely welcome you to come check it out. We have, our power breakfast guest speaker, Sean Raiz. I'll just show a quick video of him so you can get a little bit of a feel for him. And then we'll be back with Robert Jordan and talking small business.
No one's going to respect or watch over your business like you. I'm serious though, you gotta monitor your movements in your business media. People work with me because I'm flawed. I'm perfectly flawed. I've been phenomenally shattered and put myself back together authentically in the best way that I know how. And I'm not afraid of showing a scar. All you have to do is be authentic and show up as your real self.
The master of branding, the master of coaching coming together, we just click.
Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Look, PayPal 2.5, let's go. Client acquired. Come up here, say it again. How much? 2,500. That's what it starts with, an idea and then immediate massive action. You are either IMA or MIA. Immediate massive action or missing in action.
Sean Raiz is genuine. He is concerned. He gives from the heart. He loves what he does, and he loves the people who he serves. And I believe in it just as much as I believe in myself.
I would recommend to anyone who's looking to start a business, like do coaching or just leadership or just wanting to better themselves.
Sean Raiz, phenomenal. We talked about personal branding, scaling your business, going from 6 figures to 7 figures, 7 figures to 8 figures.
Some of you would have so much more if you could get rid of the less and the lack that you have in your life. Thank you, and let's grow.
Okay, so Sean Raiz, If you can't be here in person, we will be live streaming it. So if you want to check them out, on my website, I'll have the live stream. Actually, wherever you're watching right now, you'll be able to see the live stream from as well. So definitely look forward to checking out that. So Robert, what are 3 things that we need to focus on tomorrow based on what we discussed so that we can move forward and be more successful in our business?
Well, Andrew, thanks so much for having me on your show. It's an honor to be with you. You're a master of your craft, and I appreciate that. The primary reason we wrote the book is because we saw this thing among the majority of leaders, which was, if I had to put it in one phrase, it was trying to be all things to all people. That's a failing strategy for any of us. And it's easy for business owners to see it, that they can't be everything. But for a lot of people on an executive track, in the early days, if they need the money, if they're feeling a little desperate, if they're just lacking confidence, attempting to be all things to all people is a failing strategy. And you don't want to do that, because the world in a way seeks to commoditize all of us. You have to fight that. And one thing that exceptional leaders do is this kind of relentless doubling down within what is their own strength. One of the other things you see among exceptional leaders is they collaborate, I'd say, kind of on steroids. Everyone says they're a good collaborator, but when you come at it and if you're not secure enough in your own abilities, then it's hard to acknowledge other people could be better than you. And that's what forms really accretive teams, is where I'm shining just in the things at which I'm great, but you're shining in these other things. And then we can have a team that's really coming together. The other thing I would just close out is one of my favorite business stories from all the interviews that we did. It's about a guy named Dane Miller. Dane was the founder of a company called Biomet. He essentially invented artificial hips and knees. So any of your listeners, anybody's got artificial hip or knee, thank you, Dane Miller. When we interviewed Dane, I did it in person, and I said, show me your scar. Because on right by his elbow, he had asked a friend who was a surgeon to implant a little piece of titanium. And this was way back when everyone thought the best material for the human body was stainless steel. And Dane thought it was going to wear out, it was going to rust, it was not going to maintain, and he thought titanium was the only material. There was this storm in Indiana where they had their plant, and the power went out, and he knew he was going to be bored for a week. So he tells the surgeon, put it in his arm. He didn't tell anyone other than his family, his wife and his daughters, and he left it there for 10 years. It's a little piece of titanium, because he wanted to prove to the world this is the best material. And my takeaway from that story was, it's just kind of like, what is the thing to which you are so called, you are so committed that you would do that? Now, not literally that in terms of titanium, but is there that thing that calls to you which says, this is me, and I'm not going to stop doing this. I'm going to keep getting better and better at this. And it's not even about the money. It's just, I'm committed.
Excellent. So focus on your strengths is number one, and double down on them. Make sure that you're not trying to be all things to all people, correct? Number two, collaboration, but real collaboration that needs to be win-win, and you don't have to have all the credit. And it's actually better if other people get the credit, because they're going to collaborate better with you, and it's going to be more effective overall. And then finding your calling and your purpose that you're willing to really totally commit to. So yeah, no, those are great things that we can focus on. I mean, I think definitely doing those things will not only help you and your leadership skills, but it will significantly help your organization. So Robert, it's been a pleasure. Definitely thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your expertise. And I'm glad we had a chance to connect and have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been an honor.
Okay, excellent. And definitely look forward to connecting further. Hang out for a few minutes while I close it out and we'll chat. So, I'm thankful once again for another great show. Always learning new things. Hopefully you're learning new things as well and finding it valuable. Each week we have a different guest and a different topic so that, you can learn and develop knowledge and skills in different areas, because, knowledge is key to being a successful leader, because you can't just lead, but you have to know where you're leading people and know that that's the right way and why. So once again, appreciate everybody's comments. Glad that people found it to be a valuable experience. And, even if you're checking it out after the fact, this is great info, and hope that you find it valuable. So as you may know, each week we go out over YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, but we also go through the metaverse. So in the metaverse, we're on STEM City USA. So, technology is key. Learn about technology. You may want to check out STEM City USA and see a little bit more about their metaverse. It's a 2D metaverse right now, but it's developing for the future, and technology is going to lead everything. So it's important to know what's going on and just learn and get familiar with it. So once again, appreciate you tuning in, and always remember, at the end of the day, as a business owner, the more that you know, the faster your business will grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.